Heartwarming moment. Grandma discovers her daughter's eyes in a Waitress billionaire's incredible encounter turns emotional. The early morning sun spilled golden light over Millstone Diner, casting long shadows across cracked vinyl booths and chipped formica tables. The air was thick with the aroma of frying bacon and freshly brewed coffee, an intoxicating blend that drew in the sleepy town's early risers. Amongst the clinks of silverware and the soft chatter of patrons was Annie, a hard-working waitress balancing steaming plates with an effortless grace, her heart filled with hope and her mind swirling with dreams for her 5-year-old daughter, Lily. "Mommy, look!" Lily shouted from their corner table, her bright blue eyes sparkling like sapphires as she slipped her little feet into the oversized shoes that belonged to her late grandfather. The sight sent warmth flooding through Annie's chest, a bittersweet reminder of her own mother, who had walked out of her life far too soon. On this vibrant morning, just as life seemed to whirl around them full of laughter and shared stories, Evelyn, Annie's beloved grandmother, entered the diner. An aged yet vibrant presence, she had weathered storms that left echoes of loss in every wrinkle of her face. She was a pillar in their small community, a beacon of hope and warmth. As she scanned the room, her gaze locked onto Lily, and tears threatened to spill from her eyes. They were the same eyes that had twinkled with mischief decades before, eyes that belonged to a young woman lost to the currents of time. "Lily," Evelyn exclaimed, reaching the table with open arms. "You look just like your mother did at your age." Annie wiped her hands on her apron, drawing in a shaky breath as she approached, wrestling with memories that, much like the diner itself, were both comforting and painful. The bustling diner faded away, replaced by voices that murmured stories of bravery and bitterness from her own youth. "Mom, do you think I can really be a waitress like Annie?" Lily asked with innocent determination, her words dancing through the air like the warming scent of cinnamon rolls. "Of course, my sweet girl," Evelyn smiled, ruffling her hair. That's when the door swung open with a jingle, and in stepped a businessman, all fitted suit and polished shoes, his eyes scanning the diner with disdain. "This place? Really?" he scoffed, his voice loud enough to halt conversations at nearby tables. Annie's heart sank as his haughty words dripped with contempt. The townsfolk exchanged glances, a wave of tension washing over the room. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The moment hung heavy in the air, a threat looming over the humble diner. But as Annie caught her grandmother's eye, a spark ignited within her. This diner was their legacy, a tapestry woven with community and resilience. With Lily's laughter echoing in her heart, she made a silent promise. She wouldn't let it slip away so easily. In the background, as the tension simmered, whispered memories of their past entwined with the present. Would the kindness they built stay steadfast against the storm? With a shroud of uncertainty hanging above them, Annie felt compelled to uncover the truth behind their family's connection to this invading businessman. What unfathomable ties lay hidden beneath the facade of wealth, ambition, and sacrifice? As the calories of yesterday mingled with dreams of tomorrow, Annie sensed the weight of her choices grow heavier. Would she break the cycle of pain, or become ensnared within it once more? The air crackled with unanswered questions, drawing everyone closer to a moment that would define their narrative, a moment that might just illuminate the path toward healings and hidden connections that transcended the very diner they cherished. Annie cleared her throat, forcing herself to stand tall against the wave of uncertainty crashing down. The businessman, looking down his nose at the diner, continued to sneer, plainly unimpressed by the real, lived stories that were woven into the diner's well-worn fabric. "Excuse me," she called, her voice strong despite the fluttering anxiety in her chest. "Can I help you with something?" His gaze turned toward her, assessing. "Do you work here?" His eyebrow raised, almost in challenge. "I do," she replied, summoning courage. "And I'd be happy to get you a menu. We serve breakfast all day." Breakfast? In this establishment? He waved a dismissive hand. I'm looking for something a bit more upscale. The patrons around the room shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between the man in the suit and the hard-working waitress who wore her pride like a badge. Annie felt a swell of anger build behind her ribcage, mixing with her confusion. Upscale or not, she said defiantly, you want to find better pancakes anywhere in Millstone. A few chuckles lightened the mood, but Annie remained resolute, keeping her focus on the man before her. Evelyn leaned closer, squeezing Lily's hand gently. Maybe we should show him what we're made of, she whispered, her eyes glimmering with mischief. Mom, I can help, Lily chirped, brimming with innocent enthusiasm. This isn't a joke, honey, Annie replied, though a small part of her wished she could dive into carefree hope like her daughter. Maybe he is looking for something more meaningful. Something we could serve him, Evelyn suggested, her tone filled with wisdom. The idea sifted through the air, and Annie felt the weight of their diner's legacy pressing against her heart, igniting the fire of resilience within her. Okay, Annie said, her voice steadier. How about we offer you an experience? The businessman blinked. An experience? At a diner? Yes, she said, catching the attention of a few staff members. We have a special today. It's not just our food, it's the stories behind it, too. Hear about the family that built it, about the community that lifted it up. It's about the connections we make, not just the meals we serve. Shifting in his polished shoes, the businessman seemed momentarily speechless. Why don't you take a seat? Evelyn chimed, her warmth radiating and wrapping around them like a comforting quilt. You might be surprised by how much you can learn. With a measured pause, the businessman took a seat at the counter. Annie exhaled deeply, anchoring herself. It didn't matter if he was impressed or not. This was their home, and they wouldn't let anyone bulldoze over it. All right then, she said, grabbing a notepad. What can we start you with? As the conversation picked up, the diner's energy shifted. Patrons exchanged hopeful glances, curious about how this unlikely interaction would unfold. Annie felt the room's pulse quicken, a collective understanding forming this wasn't just a meal. It was a stand against the tides of indifference. The customers began to chat with the businessman, voices merging into an unexpected harmony. But just as the atmosphere warmed, her phone buzzed in her pocket, slicing through the moment. She pulled it out, her heart pounding. A message from an unknown number made her blood run cold. You have to meet me. Your mother didn't die by accident. Annie's breath hitched, confusion spiraling through her, mixing with the warmth of the diner. Could there be a connection? What on earth did it mean? She looked up, scanning the faces of her family and patrons, a knot tightening in her chest. This was only the beginning, and now, where would her truth lead her? With her face firm with determination, she faced the businessman again, ready to confront both her past and the unexpected revelations that lay ahead. She wouldn't back down. In the corner of the diner, the bell jingled again, and another customer entered. Annie's heart raced. What news, or who, would walk through the doors next, and what would that mean for everything she held dear? The bell jingled again, and the door swung open. A gust of wind swept into the diner, carrying a familiar scent of freshly baked bread and lingering spices. Annie squinted towards the entrance. The sun cast a warm glow around a figure that seemed to emerge from her past. A woman stepped inside a bit hunched, yet dignified. Annie's heart skipped. It was Margaret, her grandmother, a once vibrant spirit now shadowed by age. Her gray hair was neatly pinned up, but she wore a bright scarf that added a pop of yellow to her soft, worn cardigan. Annie, Margaret called, her voice raspy but filled with delighted surprise. I didn't know you were working here. As if the universe had aligned, the businessman shifted in his seat, his attention suddenly diverted. The chatter in the diner hushed, and Annie felt the all-too-familiar rush of protective instinct rise within her seeing Margaret struggle against the weight of the world. Grandma, Annie said, rushing from behind the counter, her pulse racing. She enveloped Margaret in her arms, feeling the warmth of her frail shoulders engulfed in the loving embrace. What are you doing here? I came to visit, love, Margaret replied softly, her eyes sparkling a hint of the mischief that Annie cherished in her childhood. I heard they were serving the best pancakes in Millstone. Annie chuckled, trying to swallow the sudden lump in her throat. You know that's true. As the two women shared this touching reunion, whispers filled the diner. Patrons peered over their cups of coffee, curiosity etched on their faces. It was a snapshot of family, the essence of their diner's story woven ever deeper with every passing interaction. The businessman was quiet now, leaning forward, intrigued by the intersection of lives before him. Annie turned and raised an eyebrow. There was something profound happening, a warm convergence of different worlds upon the humble diner's floor. "What did you bring me?" Annie asked, stepping back to check her grandmother's hands, hoping for an offering of homemade cookies or a treasure from the past. Instead, Margaret fumbled through her purse, pulling out a folded piece of paper. Her fingers trembled as she handed it to Annie, whose eyes darted to the text. It was a newspaper clipping, dated years ago. The headline screamed, and Annie's stomach twisted. "Local woman dies in tragic accident." "Grandma," Annie started, but her voice caught. Margaret's old eyes held something else, something darker. "I wanted you to see this," Margaret said, her voice lowering. "Your mother, she didn't tell me everything. But you need to know what really happened." A knot of confusion twisted tighter inside Annie. The joy from earlier faded, replaced by a chill that crawled through her veins. What kind of truth was her grandmother holding back all these years? And how did it connect to the strange message she had just received? Suddenly, the chatter around them resumed, filling the void of silence. Yet Annie felt adrift, drowning in an ocean of looming questions. Before she could gather herself, the businessman spoke, breaking into the whirlwind of emotions. "Excuse me, but can I get the story that comes with those pancakes now?" Annie glared at him, fierce yet vulnerable. Every instinct screamed to push forward, to uncover the truth igniting behind her grandmother's eyes. But the world seemed to spin a little faster now, as if it were drawing her right into the center of a storm. "Wait," she said, holding up the clipping for all to see. "I think we all need to know the story behind this." And as the diner hushed once more, Annie felt a wave of resolve wash over her. She would unearth the secrets that had clouded her family. Perhaps it started here, with this unexpected reunion and a story that still needed telling. With her heart pounding, she looked around the room. Everyone was leaning in. What ugly truths awaited them? And would her grandmother finally reveal what lay beneath the surface? As the energy shifted in the diner, one thing became clear. This was just the beginning, and with each heartbeat, the unraveling was imminent. What would her grandmother say next? And was she prepared for the answer? As the murmurs hushed into an almost reverent silence, Annie felt time itself pause. Her heart raced, pounding in rhythm with the heavy weight of the newspaper clipping in her hand. She glanced at her grandmother, searching for a cue, a glimmer of reassurance. But Margaret's expression was resolute, her gaze now fixed on the clipping. "Annie," she began, her voice trembling, "what I have to tell you may change everything you think you know about your mother and me." The way she said it, so vulnerable, tugged at something deep within Annie. The businessman leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms. "Sounds like a real story. I'm listening," he interjected, his tone a mix of curiosity and impatience. Ignoring him, Annie focused solely on her grandmother, pleading with her eyes to continue. "Grandma, please." Margaret inhaled slowly, the air thick with tension. "Your mother, she was a fighter, you know. She battled her demons. But there's something you didn't see, something hidden deep beneath her laughter." Annie remembered fleeting moments with her mother laughing until they cried, the way her mom made pancakes on Sunday mornings, the warmth of her embrace. Yet, those memories were often overshadowed by shadows that stretched long across their lives. "What do you mean?" Annie asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Your mother was involved in something dangerous," she admitted, her fingers now gripping the edge of the table. "She was caught up with some people. Bad people." The diner seemed to draw a collective breath. Annie felt the weight of gazes on her. It was like the entire world had shifted to hold this critical moment suspended in front of them. "Bad how?" Annie pressed, her heart racing, fear battling with a fierce need to unravel this tapestry of lies and hidden truths. "After your uncle's accident, she started to change. The drinking, the late nights, she was scared. I tried to help, but she pushed me away. I didn't know how deep it went until it was too late." Margaret's voice broke, each word dropping heavy like stones. Annie felt torn. She had always believed in a version of her mother as a pillar of strength, but the cracks were showing now. But Grandma, I was only a child. Why wouldn't she tell me? She thought she was protecting you, Margaret replied, her expression softening. But in doing so, she buried truths that festered silently, haunting us all. The businessman cleared his throat, trying to interject once more. That's all well and good, but what are we talking about here? Was someone killed? Annie turned to him, anger flaring. This isn't entertainment for you. This is my family. Annie, let him speak, Margaret said gently, her age-softened features determined. He deserves to know, as do you. Your mother's past had influenced your life more than you realize. The weight of the truth hung in the air, stifling. Annie could feel tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall, not now. She had questions, and they needed answers. Tell us, Grandma, she whispered. Please, tell us everything. Margaret hesitated. The flicker of conflict passed through her eyes. Your mother was part of a cover-up, a protection deal gone wrong. It was supposed to keep us safe, but it only made everything worse. When she died, it all fell apart, and the truth ended up with me. Annie gasped, trying to process the chilling revelation. The remnants of her mother's memories and warmth felt twisted, tainted by betrayal and darkness. How could this be? Just then, the bell over the door jingled again, and a sharp wind cut through the diner, causing some of the patrons to shiver. Everyone's attention snapped to the entrance where a man in a dark coat stood, his expression unreadable. With one glance at Annie, the stranger seemed to recognize something. Without breaking eye contact, he stepped inside, sending a new ripple of tension jolting through the air. Annie? He called, his voice steady yet urgent. Annie felt her breath hitch. Who was this man? What more secrets awaited her? As her heart pounded in her chest, she realized the truth would soon be unveiled, but at what cost? Was she ready for what the stranger would reveal? Annie's mind raced as the stranger stepped closer. His features were sharp, almost familiar, and in that moment, the diner faded from her reality. The smell of coffee and bacon became a dull backdrop. Annie? He repeated, tilting his head, searching her face with an intensity that made her insides twist. Do I know you? Annie stammered, her voice barely rising above the din of whispers around them. The man's eyes softened. I'm here for you. I've been looking for you. His voice was calm but tinged with urgency, as if he held a truth that could shatter this fragile world she stood on. Margaret leaned forward, her brow furrowed. Who are you? Perhaps it was the motherly instinct kicking in, or maybe a protective barrier built through years of loss and fear. A wall that needed to keep everything out. Please, sit down, he said, glancing around at the curious customers. The waitress, frozen mid-step with a coffee pot in hand, was eyeing the interaction with concern. I don't want to cause a scene. Then start talking, Annie demanded, her pulse quickening as she tried to maintain some semblance of control. The revelations of her mother's past hung hot in the air, ready to ignite alongside this new mystery. I'm here to talk about your mother, he said, each word crashing against her chest, and everything she tried to shield you from. Annie's heart sank. Why did everyone around her seem to know more about her mother than she did? The world felt shattered, with each piece poking to expose something sharp and hidden. Your mother was involved in something much bigger than any of us, he continued. The deal she made, it wasn't just about safety. It was about a dangerous game with people who don't play fair. Margaret gasped softly, her eyes widening as she absorbed his words. No, she wouldn't, Annie interrupted. You don't even know my mother. How can you say what she would or wouldn't do? No, I don't. But I knew her from a time before all this happened. He paused, running a hand through his hair, frustration breaking the surface of his calm demeanor. What I do know is that she wanted a different life, one where you could be safe. And now, she's gone, but I'm here to help you before it's too late. Too late for what? The words slipped out, raw and fierce. Before her past catches up to you. There are people out there who won't stop until they find the truth, and your mother's choices kept you from their sight for years. Annie started piecing together fragments, her mother's frantic late-night phone calls, the way she always seemed on edge whenever anything from the past was mentioned. Why now? Why are you telling me this? Because I know you're looking for answers, and I'm the only one who can guide you. I wish there was another way, he confessed, eyes darting between Margaret and Annie. Your mother's legacy is more than just a happy face. It's a darkness that's always lurked. And if we don't act, I fear what might come next. The gravity of his words struck Annie, fear and anger swirling within her like a storm. How could so much rest on her shoulders? You have to prove you're not just here to stir up fear, she shot back. I can't change the past, but I can help you understand it, he replied, desperation creeping into his tone. I know things about the cover-up, about the people involved, and there's more than what you were told. It might be the only way to protect yourself. Annie glanced at her grandmother. The anguish on Margaret's face told her this moment was vital, yet terrifying. Are you willing to trust me? The man asked, stepping forward, sincerity radiating from his every word. As she wrestled with her emotions, Annie could feel a pivotal choice looming ahead. Would she brave the unsettling truth to seek a path to understanding her mother's past? Or would she bury her head in the sand, continuing to live in ignorance of the shadows that loomed? Stay away from my family, Margaret shouted suddenly, as if summoned by the terrifying implications of this man's presence. The diner seemed to tremble on the brink of chaos, every eye now glued to them. Annie felt torn between her fear and a mounting resolve. Could she reveal the truth that held her mother captive, and in doing so, free herself? The man's expression hardened, anticipating her decision. Annie, the clock is ticking. You have to choose now. Annie felt the world towering around her, waiting for an answer, for a decision that could change everything. Annie's breath caught in her throat. Time seemed to slow as she met the stranger's gaze. She had spent countless nights wrestling with unanswered questions about her mother, but this was different. The weight of the moment pressed down on her with a different intensity. Annie, you have to listen to him, Margaret said, her voice trembling, a hint of desperation mingling with maternal instinct. If he knows something now. This isn't just some story about your past, Mom. This is about us. Annie shot back, her heart racing. You didn't tell me anything. Why should I believe him? The stranger took a step closer, as if taking her fear as a challenge. Because your mother's life was intertwined with shadows. You've lived in the light, but those shadows never really went away. I can help you bring them into the open. Annie looked around the diner, her eyes scanning the faces of curious patrons. They were strangers, yet somehow they felt like witnesses to a drama that had been set into motion long before she even arrived. Why did everything feel like it was spiraling out of control? What do you know about my mother? She sounded defiant, but on the inside, doubt spun through her. It was a familiar feeling, the constant worry that maybe she hadn't been the faithful daughter that she thought she had been. More than you think, he replied, moving to pull a folded piece of paper from his jacket. These are records. They show everything. The choices she made, the people who sought to keep you safe at a terrible cost. Margaret's face paled as he opened the paper, revealing faded letters and troubling names. No, she whispered, glancing away as if the paper itself was poisonous. Mom, what is this? Annie demanded, something unraveling deep within her. Why didn't you ever mention any of this? I was trying to protect you. Margaret snapped back, hurt flashing in her eyes. These were nightmares I thought I'd kept buried. But buried nightmares were rising now, threatening to consume everything they knew, everything they believed in. Annie leaned over the table, heart pounding. What kind of person was she? She asked the stranger, locking her eyes onto his. Was she scared? Did she regret what she did? The man hesitated but finally said, Your mother loved you deeply, Annie. Everything she did was for you. The regrets that's part of the darkness. She fought to keep you safe, even from the truth. Annie's chest tightened. It was hard to believe a woman she admired could be wrapped up in such a sinister past. And now? What am I supposed to do with this? Face it, he said simply. You have to understand what's at stake. You need to learn where she came from if you want to navigate the road ahead. And I can help you. Tears began to prick the edges of Annie's eyes. The choice before her felt impossibly large. Every moment echoed her mother's struggles, and the stranger's proposal felt like a plunge into an uncertain abyss. Annie, Margaret's voice broke through the thick air. You don't have to do this. We can go home, pretend this never happened. Annie felt a sharp pang at the thought of returning to a false sense of security. The burning questions would remain, creating shadows that would continue to haunt her. The clock ticked ominously in the background, each second drawing them closer to a reality she could no longer ignore. The chance to uncover the truth was here, but it came with a price. Mom, Annie said, her voice softening, I need to know to understand who I am. If I don't do this now, I'll always wonder what if. The stranger studied her, a glimmer of respect in his gaze. Then let us move before they find out you're awake. With that, the silence wrapped around them, layered with tension and a resolve to face whatever came next. Annie took a deep breath, her heart pounding in rhythm with a newfound determination. What lay ahead felt like cliffs ready to fall away, but she was ready to step forward into the unknown. And as they shared a silent pact, a question lingered in the air. Were they ready to face the shadows, or would they allow the darkness to claim them? The moment blurred as Annie steeled herself against her mother's anxiety, the weight of that moment heavy with unanswered questions. She could feel Margaret's panic, the way her eyes darted, processing the stranger's words like daggers thrown into the air, waiting to explode. Let us go, he urged, glancing once more around the diner where idle chatter had hushed into whispers. I'll explain everything. There's a place where we can talk safely. Annie hesitated, glancing back at her mother. The room felt stifling, crowded with the weight of all they didn't say. Mom, I need this. I need you to trust me. Margaret opened her mouth as if to protest, but the desperate look in her daughter's eyes stole her words. The years of keeping secrets tunneled into one defining moment of truth. She nodded slowly, her resignation palpable. Okay, but I'm coming with you, she finally replied, her voice shaking. The stranger led them through the back door, stepping into the cool night. The neon lights from the diner flickered behind them, a false promise of warmth fading into the distance. The street was quiet, shadows dancing under the flickering streetlights as cars passed. Each breath Annie took tasted of fresh resolve, a fleeting clarity cutting through her fear. Do you have a car? Margaret asked, her eyes narrowing with concern. The stranger gestured to an unassuming sedan parked at the curb. It's this way. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. Annie slid into the back seat. The stranger climbed behind the wheel, and Margaret settled in beside her. As they pulled away, the familiar streets of home dissolved behind them, swallowed by a darkness that felt more like liberation than fear. The city lights faded quickly, transforming into the winding roads surrounded by dense trees. The heavy silence filled the car, broken only by the soft sound of the engine humming. Annie's heart raced. She wanted to ask questions, but she didn't want to pressure her mother or the stranger who was now their guide through this tangled web of the past. Where are we going? Annie finally ventured, the question heavy in the air. To a safe place, he replied, keeping his focus on the road. Your mother's history is tied to a larger story, one you're part of now. Annie shifted, the warmth of her mother next to her reminding her of the safety she craved. Why now? Why do we have to uncover all of this now? His gaze met hers in the rearview mirror. Because the past has a way of catching up with us. And trust me, Annie, you need to be prepared. There are people who would do anything to ensure the truth remains hidden. Annie felt the chill wrap around her like a cloak. People? What kind of people? Why didn't she tell me? Some truths are too dangerous to share, he replied, his tone heavy with understanding. But your mother's courage, it was remarkable. She protected you from the darkness she faced. Margaret squeezed Annie's hand, breaking the tension but deepening the silence that followed. Annie's pulse quickened. Courage? It felt like a distant concept viewed only through the lens of another's choices. What kind of darkness? Annie pressed, her voice steady despite the tremors in her heart. His answer hung in the air, unexpected and loaded with meaning. The kind that could change everything you know about your family. It's why it takes courage to face it. As his words faded into the background noise of the night, Annie's mind raced. If courage was needed, what did that make her mother? The car turned sharply onto a gravel road, headlights cutting through the trees. In the gathering darkness, the outline of an old house began to form. Annie squinted, absorbing the details that emerged: the peeling paint, the overgrown garden. This is where it happened, the stranger said softly. This is where the truth lies. Annie swallowed hard, the implication hitting her like a wave. She sensed that they were standing on the threshold of something monumental. As the car rolled to a stop, dread settled into her bones. What truths were hidden within these walls? They stepped out, the chill of the night surrounding them like a shroud. She could almost feel her mother's hesitation, a pull back toward safety. But Annie took a deep breath, her heart steadying. It was time to face what had been hidden for so long. "Are you ready?" asked the stranger, but it felt like a question meant for all of them. Annie stood firm. "As ready as we'll ever be," she breathed out, and with that, the door to the past swung wide open in that moment. A flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Would they truly find the answers they sought, or would they unlock a truth better left buried? As they stepped closer to the old house, Annie could feel the weight of time pressing down on her. The wooden door loomed ahead, weathered and worn, peeling paint revealing the bare wood beneath, like layers of history waiting to be uncovered. It somehow felt alive, breathing memories into the night air. "Your family was different before all of this," the stranger said, his voice barely above a whisper as he gestured to the door. "And it's time you knew why." Margaret's hand tightened around Annie's. The warmth of that grasp was a lifeline, yet it also held a tension that was palpable. They were no longer just mother and daughter. They were fellow travelers on a path fraught with uncertainty. Annie looked up at her mother, searching for reassurance. Would knowing the past change the way she saw their life? The years spent in a bubble of predictability felt so distant now, like a photograph taken in soft focus. Would the reality they uncovered shatter that delicate image? "Maybe we should just go back," Margaret's voice barely lifted above the sound of the swaying trees. "No," Annie insisted, her voice firmer than she felt. "We can't go back. We need to know." She could feel the pulse of her heart, each beat like a drum echoing in the silence. The stranger paused, glancing at them for a moment that felt long and significant. Then he stepped forward, pushing the door open with a creaking groan that sent butterflies spiraling in Annie's stomach. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memories. Flickers of moonlight spilled through the grimy windows, illuminating corners where shadows lurked. Every creak of the floorboards beneath them whispered secrets. "Stay close," the stranger warned. He reached for a flashlight from his pocket, the beam cutting through the darkness as they moved further inside. Annie's eyes adjusted, narrowing on the faded photographs hanging on the walls. Each frame seemed to capture a moment frozen in time, faces smiling, unaware of the pain that would unfold later. One picture caught her breath, a young woman with striking features, eyes bright and fierce. It was her mother, but younger, perhaps 20 years ago. "That's you, Mom," Annie exclaimed, pointing excitedly. The moment hung in the air, charged with a familiar spark, but Margaret's expression shifted, a bittersweet smile touching her lips before returning to a frown. "I made choices. Choices we may not want to discuss right now." Annie frowned, feeling a pressure in her chest. "Why did you never tell me about this place? About your past?" Her mother looked away, the weight of Annie's question hanging heavily. Before she could respond, the stranger spoke again, his voice steady. "It's not just about what happened here. It's about what it means for both of you moving forward." Annie turned back to the stranger, confusion filling her mind. "What do you mean? Are we in danger? Who else is involved?" The stranger hesitated, casting a cautious glance toward a door at the end of the room. "It's easier to show you," he said, the gravity of his words settling like mist in the air. Heart pounding, Annie followed as he led them deeper into the house, the light revealing spaces filled with remnants of life and choices long made. Each step felt weighty, as if they were peeling back layers of buried truths. "Here we go," he said, pushing the last door open. What lay beyond would redefine everything Annie believed. Just then, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic lodged in Annie's throat, her heart a wild drum in her chest. "What is happening?" she gasped, feeling her mother's hand trembling beside her. "Stay calm," the stranger instructed, his voice steady. "We have to find the source of the truth, and now we're closer than ever, but we need to move quickly." Annie felt her breath hitch, uncertainty swirling in the dark. Are they truly prepared for what is to come? Would the truth unite them, or tear them apart forever? In that moment of breathless anticipation, Annie couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled into something far larger than themselves, a family history intertwined with secrets waiting to be exposed. And as they stood there in the pitch black, it dawned on her. The truth wasn't merely waiting to be discovered, it was hunting them down. Annie's heart raced, her senses heightened in the suffocating darkness. She clutched Margaret's hand tighter, drawing comfort from the familiar warmth while also feeling the uncertainty radiating from her. The stranger's flashlight beam faltered, casting jittery shadows across the room. Everything felt steeped in looming dread and anticipation. "Can you see anything?" Annie whispered, her voice barely penetrating the stillness. "No, just shadows," the stranger replied, his tone even. "Let me find the circuit box. It might just be a blown fuse." "Are we even safe here?" Annie shot back, the worry twisting in her stomach. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she pulled her mother closer. "We'll be fine," the stranger assured, but there was an edge to his voice that suggested he believed his own reassurances only partially. "Trust me." Margaret's breath came in quick bursts, the tension thick between them. "Annie, whatever happens, remember that I'm with you," she said, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Annie's instincts urged her to run, to turn back, but that tantalizing urge to discover what was hidden pushed her to stay. "Can we maybe get out of here?" she said, her voice low. "I don't think I want to see whatever you're about to show us." But the stranger was already moving, and Annie had no choice but to follow. He inched toward the last door he'd pushed open, seeking a way through the dark. "Wait," Annie called, her voice a touch frantic. The shadows danced across her vision, morphing into figures that felt all too real. "What if this just opens a can of worms we can't close again?" "Sometimes you have to confront the past to free yourself," the stranger replied, pausing before the door. "What's waiting on the other side can break you, but it can also heal you." With a swift motion, he pushed the door further, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward. "We have to go down." Margaret inhaled sharply. "Is that really necessary?" Without answering, the stranger stepped into the darkness below. Hesitation hung in the air like heavy fog, but at last, Annie took a deep breath and followed, her heart hammering. This was the point of no return. The stairs creaked beneath their weight, the air growing colder with each step. The quiet enveloped them, shadows flinging across the walls with the flickering light. Annie felt a shiver crawl down her spine, nerves prickling those old instincts to flee. At last, they reached a small, dimly lit room at the bottom. Dust motes danced in the shaft of light, filtering in from a cracked window. What they discovered there sent chills through Annie. Boxes lined the walls, old and forgotten, filled with papers and artifacts that seemed to pulse with history. The stranger began rifling through them, searching until he pulled out a worn leather-bound book. This is what you need to see." Annie's eyes widened, catching her mother's gaze. "What is it?" she whispered, a mixture of fear and curiosity buzzing in her chest. "It holds the heart of your family's past," the stranger said, carefully opening the cover. The pages crinkled as he turned them, revealing photographs, letters, and names scribbled in ink. Each one felt like a drop of rain adding to a storm brewing inside her. Then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath them. Mary gasped, and Annie instinctively stepped closer to her mother's side. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed from above, shadows casting frantic shapes around them. "What was that?" Margaret exclaimed, panic leaking into her voice. The stranger's expression hardened. "They've found us. We need to go now?" Annie's heart sank. What could be waiting for them outside? Would the truth expose danger, or were they already neck-deep in it? As the walls felt like they were closing in, one thought raced through Annie's mind. What if the only way to find their freedom was to confront the very truth they had feared? And with that, the way forward felt like the biggest risk of all. The air in the dimly lit room pulsed with urgency. Annie felt the tremors beneath her feet and knew their time was running out. As the echoes of the crash faded into the background, she urgently turned to the stranger. "We need to go now?" The stranger nodded, grabbing the leather-bound book. "This is critical. It might hold the key to everything." Annie's heart raced. Did it also mean exposing them to danger? She could feel Margaret's apprehension beside her, the weight of their shared fear anchoring them in uncertainty. "Where do we go?" Margaret's voice trembled as panic drew tight lines across her forehead. "Out the back. There's a tunnel. We'll be safer there," he replied, urgency lacing his words. Annie took her mother's hand, entwining their fingers as if that simple act could shield them from the uncertainty swelling around them. Annie turned and sprinted toward the door, her heart pounding like thunder in a storm. The stranger led the way, flashlight beam dancing wildly as they hurried through the narrow staircase. Every instinct screamed at her to look back, to check if they were being followed, but she pushed those thoughts aside. They had come too far. Together, They dashed into the darkness, the cold air a stark reminder of how their lives had been forever altered. Suddenly, the distant sound of hurried footsteps reverberated through the shadows above. Time felt both slow and frantic, each breath drawing deeper into the fear that had curled inside her like a snake ready to strike. "Hurry," Annie urged, pushing forward, propelled by an adrenaline surge that felt both empowering and terrifying. They reached a heavy wooden door at the end of the hall. The stranger quickly pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit tunnel that stretched into the unknown. Light filtered through cracks in the walls, casting eerie shadows that wavered as if alive. "Go," he ordered, shoving the book into Annie's hands as they entered the tunnel. She could feel the weight of it, the histories and secrets it held. Margaret hesitated, glancing back. "Do we need to wait for help? Right now, we need to move. They'll be searching for us," he insisted, his voice steady like an anchor in a storm. With an assuring nod, Annie gestured for her mother to follow. "We stick together. No turning back." As they moved deeper into the tunnel, the world above them faded. Each step felt heavy with the knowledge that the truth they sought could change everything. "What is really in the book?" Margaret whispered, glancing curiously at Annie. "I don't know yet," she admitted, glancing down at the leather-bound book. "But I will find out." The claustrophobic walls felt oppressive, but as they walked, a flicker of courage ignited within Annie, fueled by determination. What if this book contained the answers they had always sought, the ones that would bring peace instead of pain? They emerged into a small clearing hidden beneath the old house. A glimmer of moonlight illuminated its edges and revealed rusted tools and forgotten memories. There, a faint wooden door stood ajar, leading them to the outside world. Suddenly, the sound of voices echoed from the tunnel behind them, and Annie's heart raced as cold fingers of fear curled around her throat. "They're coming. Through there," the stranger shouted, pointing to the door. "We'll scout for a way out." They rushed as one unit, Margaret's hand squeezing Annie's for reassurance. Each person stood poised on the edge of the unknown, knowing that whatever lay beyond could either release them or hold them captive forever. With deliberate care, Annie pushed through the door. The crisp night air greeted them, a world alive with sounds and shadows. She halted, taking in the sprawling landscape under the stars. They were free, but were they truly safe? "We need to keep moving," the stranger urged. "They won't stop until they find you." Annie nodded, adrenaline fueling her. "Where to? What is our next step?" "Follow me," he said, scanning the surroundings. "We need to get close to the town. There's a safe house where we can plan our next move." As they slipped into the darkness of trees lining the edge of the property, hearts pounding in unison, Annie couldn't shake the thought of how everything had changed in a heartbeat. The truth she sought felt like a heavy secret balancing on a tightrope between revelation and danger. Would they finally uncover the past that shaped them, or would it consume them whole? "They will come for us, Annie," Margaret said, her voice low but filled with resolve. "We have to stand firm, together, no matter how hard it gets." Annie felt a swell of gratitude for her mother's strength. Standing beside her, they rushed through the shadows, hearts synchronized, the promise of freedom and discovery echoing in their wake. As they entered the thicket, Annie clutched the book tightly, her key to understanding the intricate threads that bound her family. One step at a time, they were forging a path toward freedom and redemption, united by love and the unyielding spirit of hope. And in that moment, under the vast heavens sparkling above, Annie knew the journey ahead, though fraught with danger, would bring them nearer to the truth, and perhaps to healing. It was time to shape their destiny, to answer what had been asked and reclaim the stories that had long been buried. The shadows may loom, but together, they could face anything. Make a choice to face the truth and gain your freedom. You need to subscribe now to keep up with the unfolding story. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment on your thoughts about Annie's journey. And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly with 5 friends who need to see this transformation.